are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the mothers.
This madness has got to come to an end. Because if the madness doesn't come to an end, the madness is going to bring the world to an end, which is not a good idea.
Sisters and brothers, respected hand in hand.
If someone criticizes Christianity or Hinduism or Judaism, I'm there to defend that faith because they're all God's faith, like my faith.
That we've been waiting for. We are the ones, we are the ones.
And the other thing is that the practices, for example, this morning I came from the temple, we had a joyous chanting. Everyone was dancing, playing instruments. What a way to start the day, and every day.
We are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for.
There's one God, a loving God, not a condemning God. I don't believe that there is anything anyone can do, including people that's very hard to accept, that there's anything anyone can do in this place that could not be forgiven.
Seekers with wings spreading to the sun. The shapers
and some people are fanatics about what they believe and what they follow. You know, they think Catholics have horns. Mine aren't showing today.
We are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. Oh, we are the ones, we
I think this is a great big seed that has been planted, and I'm hoping for it to blossom into a big old forest of people of all kinds just joining hands.
greatest beauty and keepers of the faith.
The religion was created to cure people, to pray for them, to get medicine, not to make them like slaves.
Oh, we are the ones, we are the ones that we've been waiting for.
In the last number of years, I've had the privilege of meeting people from around the world, from the Maasai, over in Africa, to the Twa, the Pygmy. I've gotten to go to places like Rwanda. I've gotten to walk among the bones and seen the results of the kind of hatred that once existed. And the one thing that I personally wish that you, the viewer, gets out of this is the understanding that hatred is the same anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter if it's homophobia, it doesn't matter if it's racism, it doesn't matter if it's religious tolerance. The issue is always the same. We're all human beings, and we have this one moment in our lives to make the choice every time it comes to us. If we can choose to treat someone else by seeing their humanity, then we can live in a more peaceful world. When we designed this event, we decided to try and concentrate on creating an experience that would encourage interaction more than the typical forms used for such a thing. The round table created a sense of equality and camaraderie among all of the spiritual leaders, which encouraged an interactive dialogue. We invited many faith traditions to our event. While many came, some chose not to attend for one reason or another.
Sometimes we shortchange people because we don't know them. Huh? And once we get to know them, they're the same as we are. I mean, I don't care whether people are Muslims or this or that or the other thing, and you take them as they are.
You have the right to do whatever you want to do. I don't have to like that. But the problem has been over the eons is that if I don't do what you do, I get burned at the stake. And that's the biggest problem, not whether you come from the tree clan or the bear, or whether you say God or whether you say goddess. That's not the problem. The problem is that people have killed people and destroyed civilizations because they don't believe in the same thing.
And they're doing it
The problem, and they're doing that, and they're still doing it today.
I think all of our concepts of God are all-inclusive. And it's not about trying to come up with a one, it's trying to come up with a clarity and understanding of each, so that all of the birds remain all of the birds. Right? I want to know what your concept of God is, and I want you to know what mine is. And if they meet in the middle, thank God. And if they're different on the edges, thank God.
But I think most people really don't get that yet. And I don't think you're ever going to get it until they have a concrete way of experiencing that difference that's not threatening. And that's not going to happen unless you structure it and arrange it and have people to do that. I mean, to really be serious about getting that to happen. And that certainly is not the case in most Christian churches. I don't think it's the case in most anything groups. I think we tend to be sort of about ourselves.
I listen to all of you. You talk about your religion, your practices, but I can't begin to understand, fully get a grasp of it until I visit your temple, your churches, your environment. The same way with you, I can tell you about me, the Hopi people, but until you come and see who we are, how we live, how society is treating us, how we're dealing with the elements of life, then you can understand who we are, who the Hopi are. And I truly invite you to come and see and experience our Hopi life.
I have experienced so many people that literally have to be sort of extracted from our cultural embeddedness and biases and prejudices, removed and put into an indigenous culture to do that kind of visiting that you're describing, and those fears just melt away.
There is a deep chasm between different faiths. A lot of people have not made an effort to understand about other faiths. They go by the hearsay, what other people are saying, and make judgments on that. And something inside of them bothers them. It takes the balance out of them. And I think it's the individual responsibility to find the truth on their own. Once you find the truth, learning about the other faith, knowing about them, that the circle is complete, and that bias that you had that is bothering you is completely gone.
I'm not going to wait for you leaders to invite me and my people to your church. I'm coming anyway. This country says I can come. And so my children have to go, and then they have to come back and make a report to their elders about their experience. So they don't walk around with prejudices that have either been fed to them intentionally by us as elders or unintentionally, so that they get to make a sound decision based on their own experience of the church, of right organizations, anything that they disagree with, they must go and visit and come back and make a report.
I've not really had much support from the Episcopal Church. In fact, I've had a lot of criticism from people who say, well, but don't you really love your own tradition? As if you can't have spaghetti one night and pork chops the next and sushi the third. I love them all. I mean, I think you have to use analogies about what is real in your life. It's not just one thing. And that's what, to me, is so fascinating about modern science and really seeing diversity as the essence of creation. I mean, it's not some odd deal. It's the way the place is put together, the way the bloody universe is put together. There are no two stars that are alike. There are no two snowflakes that are alike. There are no two seashells that are alike. There are no two human beings that are alike. No two birds that are alike. I mean, that's the way it was built.
I have one brother that's back on the reservation. The others are Christian. Okay? And their culture and their commonality is Christian. First and foremost, that's who they are, and that's okay. I love them anyway. That's their choice.
Now the young people, they see TV, they see America, they see Coca-Cola, so they don't want to apprenticeship themselves to the older people any longer. They want to get to Paris, or they want to get to the United States and get a Mercedes and a big house, fly a jet, meet Oprah, these type of things. So the tradition is being lost because the older people don't have anyone to pass it on to. And you get folks who may come from time to time and travel to try to learn, but many times can't stay to get the whole thing. So it's kind of like Luke Skywalker when he was on the planet with Yoda, and Yoda said, well, it ain't time to go yet. You're going to get jacked up when you try to beat Darth Vader. So it's kind of like that.
In regards to this question, I'd like to read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, if I may.
This is from the 7th chapter, 7th verse. Mata parantaram nanyat kinchirasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre mani gana iva. Krishna says, I am the absolute truth. Everything comes from me. Everything is strung on me as pearls are strung on a thread. So we may not see God, but He's what holds it all together. From the Krishna conscious point of view, there is only one source of all energy, and we are those energies. So we are not really God, and yet in one sense we are, because there's nothing but God. But the tiny parts that we are meant to serve the one from whom we all come. So if we work cooperatively, not thinking, oh, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the controller, I'm the owner, but that God is, then we can work cooperatively, no matter what our culture, what our language, what our anything else is, that we all work together for the benefit of the complete whole, who is God.
As a Christian, I mean, absolutely, I believe that God's going to communicate with them, and God's trying to communicate with them and draw them into an intimate relationship with God. And if that happens to be through the Christian tradition, I rejoice in that. But I also understand that God works in mysterious and manifold ways. As Jesus himself said there, I have many flocks that you do not know about.
We are all, whoever said it, pearls on the string, you know, and my pearl is not bigger or better. It's the same pearl created by God, by the one who loves us, by the beloved one, so that we can all exist together. And then we can really move forward.
The essence of every religion is the same. There is only one water. This is a green glass, and so you look at the water and it looks green. This is a blue glass, and so you look at the water and it looks blue, or yellow, or orange, or red, any color. But the water is one. That is what I mean by the essence of every religion is one.
It seems pretty clear that most of the conflicts today in the world are in the name of religion, and the spiritual leaders who are present in those areas, it's time for them to open up their own texts and read the sacred teachings of the texts, which teach nothing but nonviolence, goodness to the humanity, and certainly not killing. And if this is the case, I think they have to sit together, learn from their texts first, and then learn among themselves, have a common dialogue, and decide as to what is the best solution to bring an end to such conflicts which are nothing but purely in the name of religion.
Terrorism is definitely and most clearly not sanctioned by Islam. The problem is that the Muslims of the world do not have a media access. The media, unfortunately, is basically an entertainment, a form of entertainment for the general public. People switch on a television because they want to be entertained, even though it may be a news channel. And the news media doesn't want to listen to some Muslim colleagues saying, "Oh, we don't condone this, right?" or "We don't agree with this." They rather want to focus on other scholars who say that, "Yeah, we do. I think these people are doing the right things," and they will find these one or two scholars who will say these things and pretend that this is the message of all Muslims.
I think from a Muslim point of view, the Muslims really need, it's a political game that's going on in the Middle East. They need to go back to what their prophet taught them to. We need to separate religion from politics. I think that would be the number one thing to do. And that can be done by some of the key religious leaders to go back and ask people to go back to their holy textbooks. There is nothing anti-Jewish in Quran. Muhammad never said anything anti-Jewish. And people need to go back to that. When they do that, then they can solve the problem. The problem at hand is defined. It is the land, it is politics.
What we have to do is focus on those things which unite us and not those things that divide us from history, and see how we can work together.
Tolerance as a word, I try to be charitable in my definition of things. I understand the intent behind the use of the word, and language is limiting. But love to me has more value from my spirituality. That to tolerate me sounds and feels to me that you dislike me, first of all, much less appreciate me. You can't appreciate my culture or my tradition if you're tolerating me.
I don't want to be tolerated. I mean, you know, I want to be received, and there's a difference. And I think that's the language that we need to use. We need to receive each other, not tolerate each other, you know? I mean, how arrogant.
There are three main people that inspired me to begin this event, and they are my grandfather, Joe C. Thompson, my father, John Philip Thompson Sr., and my mentor, Ricardo Cervantes. The three things that these men have in common is they had a desire to stand up for people whose voices aren't always heard, and they had the ability to dare to be open to new ideas and to dare to stand up for things that weren't popular in their time. My grandfather stood up against segregation and fought the Ku Klux Klan, often risking his family's own life. And my father followed his example when he ended up fighting on behalf of the Gay Pride Parade in Dallas to occur. There are many other things these two men did, but growing up, I saw their willingness to take on a barrage of public attack and to stand up for the things that were right. The third person was Ricardo Cervantes. He's the Toltec shaman for the people at Teotihuacan, Mexico, and I have the blessing of knowing him for some time now. One of the things that he taught me most strongly was that the indigenous cultures of the world need to have a voice, and that their traditions are just as ancient as what we consider to be accepted Western traditions or accepted Eastern traditions. So if we're able to try and re-embrace these different people, we're able to start trying to relearn things that our culture might have forgotten along the way.
And I say thank you to you, Creator, Holy Spirit, and be with us today as we be amongst each other and be with one another as one towards you, Holy Spirit, life giver.
In my efforts to explain what has been for me a very profound and life-changing and beautiful and very personal spiritual path that does not proselytize, that will teach to those who are interested but will not impose itself on anyone. That when I try to explain that there is no Satan in our spirituality, that for us everything is sacred, that life is sacred, to be met with a wall and to be refused and to be demonized. That would be the best word, to be demonized. It is, it's a very cruel thing to demonize another person. It is antithetical, I think, to any true spiritual practice.
The evangelicals, or certain forms and expressions of evangelical Christianity, not only think they're right and you're wrong, but they think you're evil. And they think you're evil, and I believe that has to be taken seriously. And as a result of that, they also believe that the means justify the end. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they, in setting up an interfaith dialogue, unless you can get them to be honest about it, they are going to use that as an agenda for conversion because they need another notch on their gun. It's about seeing Christianity as a propositional statement, as a set of doctrines. And if I can just get you to say the words, Jesus, help me, Jesus, save me, then I've won.
But I need to know why when I try to sit in dialogue with one person who is sincere in their beliefs, that they are unable to see beyond the limits of their own fear. I could live with that. I could live with that if it were not then carried into the political arena where my right to practice my spirituality is threatened. I'm also a First Amendment lawyer, so for me, the Constitution and the First Amendment is inviolate and sacred and holy because it is holy for each of us to practice as we are called to the divine. So my concern becomes one of deep worry about the future of this country and about the freedom of each of us to follow the calling that we've been brought to.
It's nice to say that we love each other and we just treat them with respect and we treat them as one. But the reality is, you believe that and they don't. And they're going to get you. Bottom line is, they're out to get you. And they can't be trusted. They're bullies. But I believe that they are heretics at their core because they believe in the heresy of a literal interpretation of Scripture. So they're taking a view of Scripture that is very narrow and very literal, and in the worst sense, taking a view where we hold up Scripture as being primary and important, and what all heresies do and take it to an extreme. I'm on the other end of the spectrum is that because of evangelical Christians and their proselytizing, I, as a Christian who wants to enter interfaith dialogues, get shut down. I find the other side of it. I experience prejudice as well.
There is a big assumption made. The assumption that the other faith does not have the salvation element in them. They go to hell, that's why I need to salvage them. Proselytizing is essentially a process of ego, process of politics, wanting to have my faith to have the most number to prove that I am the largest. I think that is the evil in itself.
Proselytizing is not part of Celtic tradition or Druidic tradition. There are no Druid missionaries. If anything, there are Druid permissionaries, meaning giving permission to do whatever you see fit for your own path. But the way I would respond, I think, is more, again, drawing on one of my heroes, Carl Jung, who once said that enlightenment does not come about by imagining beings of light, but by making the contents of the shadow conscious. I don't know how many people are familiar with this series of books out right now called the Left Behind series. And it's essentially kind of fueled by this cosmology that there is, you know, the rapture will come and anyone who's not a true believer will be left behind. And I got a few sweatshirts made up recently that say, "I want to be left behind." Picture of Mother Earth on it. That's okay with me. Earth is going to work out for me.
Our Zoroastrian faith is one of tolerance and acceptance. We certainly respect the other faiths and respect the practicing of other faiths. Each man or woman has the rationale, the reason, and the good mind to make their own decisions, decide between good and evil, all religion being some form of good.
So, and I would be arrogant to say that I can't learn anything from people of other cultures or other faiths. I think it was said earlier, it's so much of it is born out of fear. And I have to quote one of my favorite prophets from England, Jethro Tull. He says, "You can excommunicate me on the way to Sunday school, have all the bishops harmonize these lines. I don't believe you. You have the whole damn thing all wrong. He's not the kind you have to wind up on Sunday."
I am a Christian. I mean, I'm really happy to be a Christian. I love it. But my trying to put that on you, anybody else is, for me, not being a Christian. It's putting me on top of you, as opposed to the two of us seeing each other and seeing the love of God and the face of God in each of us. I see the face of Christ in you. You may see the face of Buddha in me.
I think that all faiths have some very general themes that run through like a tapestry that's just beautiful. And as I sit here and listen to all of you, that's affirmed for me that every belief, every door that man sought a connection with his Creator has borne fruit and has tried to teach us how to be a good human being. And that's, to me, is more important than what you name it or what you call it or what house you do it in. I don't think that's important. And I think the fact that we've all come together is an indication to me that on some level, there are quite a few of us that may think that too.
People fight because they're afraid. And so it would be more of a question than a statement. The statement would be, go to your fear. Find out what your fear is. Go to your depth, go to the internal pilgrimage, and find out what the depth of that fear is that causes you to fight so hard for your position and not honor other positions.
Well, you know, the Hare Krishnas are sometimes accused of proselytizing. I mean, some of you may remember sometimes of seeing Hare Krishnas in the airport selling books and like that. So in one sense, I feel the most successful proselytizers have been the scientists or the atheists who are saying there is no God and, you know, religion is the opiate of the people, like that. And so in one sense, I have to give a little credit to the evangelical Christians for at least establishing for the world in general the necessity of God. Now, the reason the Hare Krishnas seem to be proselytizing as opposed to Hinduism, which doesn't proselytize, is that the books of our spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, at least for me and for those who follow Hare Krishna, are nectar. They're spiritual substance. They're medicine for a condition of the mind that is depressed, full of anxiety, bewildered, spiritually ignorant. So I would advise everybody, no matter what their belief or what their culture is, they could find benefit from reading Prabhupada's books, especially the evangelical Christians.
Are we open to dialogue? Are we going to dialogue? I think since Marianne had said something about entering into dialogue, and I had said to some of the folks that I was sitting with last evening, I wasn't going to say anything, but you know, this to me as a Native person is a prime example of a turnoff by what I call Eurocentric or foreign lifeways. Okay, what you have just done to me is a real turnoff, because you have the question, as I understand, is about how does it relate? How do you feel about? And you have just, to me, exemplified, even to talking about the evangelicals should read. Okay, so for myself as a Native Apache person, you've done exactly what the question is about.
Thank you.
Do you have a response to that, or
Huh?
do you have any response to that?
I appreciate your response.
On top of all this, in Jewish tradition, the understanding called sinat chinam, that means hatred for no reason. And we are constantly, as Jews, called the infidel. We are called not human. We are called less than. And all the platitudes are wonderful to hear about being spiritual and being your own self. But there are many faiths and peoples at this table who have not been allowed to be who they are.
All religions put together, like here we are today, we are like a chain link of life. All religions, the purpose of all religions is to promote life, to preserve the good things of life for all living things. And that's what we are here today.
At the very, very beginning, some souls shared the desire to love and serve God. They never left the spiritual world. But the Lord had given us free will as tiny spirit souls, tiny parts of Himself. So He gave us the free will. We here are the ones who chose to misuse our free will, to try to be God instead of love and serve God. So He created the material world for those of us who are striving to be happy without Him.
When I encounter someone who's proselytizing, I feel assaulted, as you did. I don't like the assault. I have to fend off the assault. When we're proselytizing, we're not receiving. We're selling. I don't like to be sold. And I don't feel loved unless I'm received.
This is my spiritual path. I do not want Jesus. I do not need Jesus in my life. The path is laid out clearly in the Torah, in our tradition, that is about the relationship between me and God and me and the other person. It is not about somebody coming in as a mediator for me, nor do I need a mediator for me. It is not about my having to have somebody die on a cross for my sins. It is about me doing my work, my relationship with God. Evangelical Christianity has as its core the need to have a Savior and go out and teach all nations. Please address that. Please tell me why I need to be forced to have that in my life and my children and the children of people's children that I teach to say, this is the way it's going to be. Bless all of you that have this in your life. Bless all of you that need Jesus in your life. But now, follow the commandments the way that Jesus says it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right? This is the core of the message of Jesus. It's a message of love. It's a message of tolerance. It's a message of me getting to be whom I need to be in order to be a fully human person.
So no matter what path you take, the goal is still to reach the same place. And religious leaders who don't realize that, they are fakes, I believe, and they need to understand that if we are, helping the humanity as a religious leader, that's the message we need to give them.
One of the primary reasons we decided to invite all the spiritual leaders to spend their meals together was because we realized in consulting with other people that had done this type of project before that it was very rare that the spiritual leaders would ever actually spend time with each other off the stage or other than where they were lecturing.
No, I'm a Presbyterian and a Wiccan.
Hey, breaking bread together. Break bread.
Enchiladas together.
Breaking enchiladas together.
And Doritos.
Multicultural.
So we felt that by creating an environment where they would be able to literally break bread with each other would be one way to encourage the kind of process it would take for them to come up with 10 principles that would encourage the rest of mankind.
Okay. But they're being persecuted, he told me, in Pakistan because they don't think they're truly Muslims.
Because this conference focused on bringing together many different spiritual leaders from different traditions, it only made sense that they would express themselves as they reach these different emotional points throughout the conference through different ceremonies.
I am the goddess, I am the mother, and all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals.
It was incredibly moving to get to see them find their commonalities through these unpredictable improvisational moments.
I am love.
I am passion. I am leadership.
I am pissed off.
One of the characteristics, at least of European and Fertile Crescent goddess traditions was, and now very much a part of contemporary goddess spirituality, is the experience of the divine feminine as maiden, mother, and crone, which correspond to the phases of the moons, the new moon and the full moon, which is fertile, and the mother, and the crone. And the understanding is that each aspect is contained in the one that follows.
In my tradition, the feminine principle is the warrior. It's the chaos, it's the internalized rage. It's not the divine goddess, with all due respect to your tradition. It is more the rage of the earth and the divine forces. We believe that from the first moment a female gave birth on this planet in pain, that pain, when it came out, as a prayer, if you will, we had to go somewhere. That energy had to go somewhere. And so it's female in function and not gender, as it collects and it gathers. So all that rage from childbirth, abuse, rape of the land, incest, all of that happens to the female in this planet, in this ecosystem, is gathered and collected.
As a priest, I'm usually referred to as father, or in Russia, Batyshka. And in my wife is referred to as mother and Manushka. The feminine aspect within the relationship is very much highly exalted. The conclusion of every service that we have invokes the prayers of the Theotokos, the one who bore God. You know, equality does not mean sameness. My wife is incredibly intuitive, you know, and as my own spiritual father has told me many, many times, listen to your wife. You know, there are aspects of the spiritual life that she's incredibly perceptive on.
The word Shekhinah is the representation of the feminine principle, the divine feminine. And it is the understanding that in the Kabbalahs where it's articulated most effectively is that the divine feminine is the perfect vessel. It is that which receives everything without any intent to take for itself. It's the masculine energy that is the one that is aggressive and wants to take, to put, the masculine principle. But it is the Shekhinah, the presence of God, that is fully received.
There's so many myths or misunderstandings that have been created out of fear. For example, you mentioned earlier about sitting with the Wiccan priestess. Well, they don't fly on brooms. Our friend said she uses a vacuum cleaner. No.
There's a saying in Ireland, never give a man a sword unless he knows how to dance. And it's not talking about a jig. It's talking about dancing, as we were saying earlier, the feminine. It's being able to do that dance of internal integration. And I think that one of the things the feminine can teach, at least that's where I have received it, is a nonviolent ethic.
The crone is the wise woman, she's the elder, which has also been lost in Western culture, and which was a characteristic of indigenous cultures, was that the elder women often picked the chiefs, they picked the leaders, the generals, the men who led the clan or the tribe into war. They were chosen by women, and they could be pulled by women. In the Western indigenous tradition, the idea is that the sword of the warrior is placed at the feet of the goddess, that necessity to be a warrior, to go to battle, serves life. Do not give a sword to a man who cannot dance. And it's the goddess who teaches a man to dance.
Given the topic that we just ended on, it's only appropriate to ask Phyllis if she would do the closing prayer today.
Air my breath, fire my spirit, water my blood, and earth my body. And when we gather together in a circle, we remember where we are, which is the center of the universe, and why we are here.
I went with my family down to Teotihuacan in Mexico, and they hired a tour guide, and I was griping about that. And it turned out this man, he looked at my eyes and he said, "You came from here." And he asked me to go and meditate in this area of Teotihuacan. About an hour and a half later, he was tapping me on the back, and to me it was seconds. And I was red as the suit is, and I had been burned. I'd been sitting there for so long in this area. And what I didn't realize was during that time, he had put me there so that I could reclaim my connection with God. And what he taught me that day was that God permeates so much further than any one religion can define it. And that's how I met Ricardo Cervantes. He ended up being one of my main inspirations for creating this event, so other people could understand that there are different ways to approach the same God.
Teach every religion you carry in your heart, but make the people don't lie, and make the people don't scare. when they talk to a God. There is no people that it's bad. We make them bad. Tell to your brothers, to your kids, that if we teach to anybody, any religious, we have to talk to them with the heart. And that's the real power, to make them to understand how to take care of the world and how to live in peace. And we can share in the love to every single people in the world, no matter if it's darkness or black or white or yellow. We can be like today. We can face in each other, and we can talk like this in harmonic, or as the Indians talking about, living harmonic as the water, as the air, as the fire, as the Mother Earth, and you can find what you really want the people find. Ometeotl.
If there's one thing to be learned in the mythology of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, it is man's tenacious desire to kill the divine and divinity's tenacious ability not to be killed. And I think that we need to see that, and we need to know that, because as we're doing what we're doing, we are opening up a lot of fear in the world around us in doing what we're doing, and we know that. You're talking about the courage to get out there, and you've had the courage, Jim. And it takes courage. It takes courage to say what you're saying. It takes courage to embrace the partnership culture and the feminine. And our task is not easy, and we need to recognize that.
Fear is a powerful motivator. It's been used generation after generation. When we address fear minus conflict, then we can get production. Fear is embedded in our social system. Fear is embedded, denial, lies. We have to, as a human being, be true to ourselves, to everyone, not just what I happen to feel at the moment. Everything we say, everything we do has an effect on everyone. We have to teach responsibility to managing behavior.
After 9/11, we made it a point, because there were people that were concerned, because Unity is a very much mix of Catholic and Presbyterian. I mean, we have everybody. And they were ashamed of themselves, because they would be out in public, and after the 9/11s, they would see someone Muslim or you know, and get all fearful. And we went to a mosque and we prayed with them, and it did help. And because sometimes you get so tied up in fear, you can't even sit and be in the silence, because the fear has you so I know in action that it does work. There were a very few that were not interested in doing that.
I don't think the answer is, I'm sorry, but flying jet planes into, buildings. That doesn't, I'm sorry, that, I need to hear more about that as well from our Islamic brothers. How can we reform that way of thinking as well? I mean, we've all, been guilty of acts of violence, institutional violence. I think we've apologized for it. But help me understand maybe how we can reform that kind of thinking as well.
As someone brought about the September 11 issue, it was a passing comment. To me, gosh, people still have not figured out for what is the truth. There were some freaky individuals that did that. They should not look at me and all other Muslims in the world for that incident. But that moment passed. But later on, I found from the same individual that it was just a moment to understand what was going on rather than a judgment. And Then I realized my own bias towards that statement. He meant to learn.
We don't need to make them scared when we talk from a God. God is light. God is humble. And God is white spirit. And I hope one day you listen this word that coming from this Indio, from this indigenous or native. You understand the words. The words were created to sing to the mountains, to sing to the rivers, to sing to the wells, water, hearts, to the Mother Earth, but not to hurt people. You have to use the word to cure. You have to use the word to pray to make the world one day as we wish to make it.
It's also easier to blame someone else than it is to take responsibility for dealing with your own shadows. Instead of confronting your own fears, your own dark side, you project it onto someone else. I think that we have to be available, that we have to show people what our traditions are about, the truth of who we are. We have to share the beauty and the wisdom that is ours. And when we have to talk to people about their fear and show them that they don't have anything to be afraid of. We have to help people to come to a place of feeling safe so that they can open their hearts and trust that the world is actually full of divine grace.
We're afraid to sit at the table with a Wiccan priestess or a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Muslim because we're different. Well, so what? We're different. I think it's put deep within our soul that we're all the same in terms of our humanity. And it's through our humanity that we discover the divine in all of us, the divine presence. We have to say, you know, to hell with that fear. I mean, yes, we're all concerned about our families, and so much of that fear is sort of self-preservation and job security. We want to feed our children, but at the same time, there's something deep within us, welling up deep within us, that has to express itself around tables like this, not only in what we can verbalize, but what we can hear, what we can learn from each other about getting along without killing each other.
Mojibo batala orisha nana, baba orisha.
Ashe.
Mojibo babuluwaye atina na buruku.
Ashe.
Mojibo sai mojibo rishoko.
Ashe.
Mojibo rumila eni keji olodumare.
Ashe.
Mojibo bobo orisha yati bobo orisha orun.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
Thank you.
When I was from 10 to about 13 years old, I kept having this dream of being in a place where there are these buildings dedicated to different areas of knowledge. There was one for science, there's one for spirituality, one for the arts, and so on. And every time I had this dream, I was standing there just looking out at it and thinking, wow, all these people from all over the world came and shared their knowledge on those subjects, even though they came from different traditions, different cultures, different areas of the world. They came just to share this in a peaceful way. And I thought, wow, what if such a place really did exist? And one of my friends comes to the door and he said, I just went to this place, and it was this place where all the Native Americans, all the way from Alaska, all the way down to South America, would come together, and they built pyramids, and one pyramid was for science, and one pyramid was for spirituality, and one was for art. And he went down and listened. He described exactly what I was talking about. They came together for all the different areas of knowledge of humankind, and it would be a place of peace where people could find out how they could benefit each other. And I said, take me to this place. And I went there, and I stood on the ground, and this place is called Xochicalco. It's a little bit out of Cuernavaca, Mexico. And I stood there realizing that not only was this vision possible, but half the world had done it before. And I realized this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And this is what I'm supposed to help bring back to the world.
The old bishop from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And he was in his 80s, and his wife died, and they were very close. God, within 6 months he was married. So he said to me, "Are you going to see Fandel?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "You tell him that celibacy is for the birds."
Sex education was in the church. They taught things in the school about sort of biological functioning, but sex education, what one's sexuality is about, is in the church. And one of the things I remember, it was a cartoon strip, and it was about the creation story. So in the first panel, it was God created man. Second panel, God created woman. It goes on and it talks about then the parts of man and the parts of woman, the breasts, the genitals. Then in the final panel, there was this big cloud with this lightning in the air, and a finger comes out of the cloud and says, "Don't use them." And that was to be made funny about what's happened. And this was for me. This is in the 1950s. This is my church, how it was in a sense making fun of that kind of process. And what we were taught is, as you are teaching, sexuality is healthy, and sexuality is who we are.
Right now, this is I hate to use the word puritanical.
Yes.
Is that all right to use that word? I mean, this is a profoundly puritanical reaction, repressed, very dangerously repressive time. And especially when you repress Eros, it's going to come out because it's a life force. And if you squash it down, it's going to twist on the way. So I think in part that's part of the fear and part of the anger and part of the violence that's being precipitated is that distortion of the life impulse because it's being repressed instead of honored.
The Dalai Lama, when he heard about in the States that there was homosexuality in the practice of Buddhist meditation, and there were groups that had actually formed that were gay and lesbian meditation groups within Tibetan Buddhism, and he actually came out with a statement that, I can't remember exactly when this was, and he came out with a statement that said that this was not acceptable within the Tibetan Buddhist culture and religion. And so much power was brought down on him, really. The feedback he got was tremendous from within the Tibetan Buddhist community, within the gay and lesbian community in the country. And he contemplated this, and he came back and said, "I was wrong, that I'm speaking from the tradition as it was. And as the tradition is evolving, that love is the basic point here, and if people love each other, that is the really critical relationship. It's not the gender-to-gender issue." I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the fact that the Dalai Lama had that flexibility to be able to change his position.
Now the question is, why in our culture at this time is the focus now on gays? And I would say now we don't look so much at the theological perspective, but we look at the psychological perspective. And what we're looking at is fear. And I would say first, it's fear of sexuality. Period. Fear of sexuality. Because when you start talking about gender orientation, you're talking about what one does with one's sexual organs. We don't do things with sexual organs. They don't exist. You see? And it's the Minotaur and the mermaid. The bottom half of the body from the navel down is animal, and the upper half is human. And so we've inherited that. And I think that it's primarily the fear of sexuality. And then the orientation. That's my response.
In the series of reincarnation, you're one gender for several generations. During your time with Creator, and you decide that you need to go back and be the other gender, you are born, and it's understood that you will have an attraction for the same as you are. And it takes on as being gay or lesbian in our modern culture now. And then it takes 2 cycles to become the other gender.
We've come a long way in terms of trying to understand homosexuality. I think the world's come a long way. People come to understandings at different speeds. As time goes by, the Catholic Church will have a different understanding of that committed homosexual relationship in particular. I mean, even now, I would say we can't make a judgment of what God thinks in the committed homosexual relationship. But if it is a promiscuous relationship, either homosexual or heterosexual, I mean, those present issues. I think the good news in society is that we're openly discussing some of these issues that we've never been openly discussed before.
One of the most hopeful experiences that we found was when we dined at a war one evening, and that was because the chef Abner Samuel had grown up in Israel, and he had grown up in a place where he saw Jews and Muslims constantly fighting with each other, and he had become a chef just so that he would be able to have food, having grown up in an area where he was hungry most of the time. So since his career had led him to Dallas, he was so excited to be able to prepare a meal for these people.
The fact that you have a Muslim and a Jew sitting around the table and breaking bread, I think that's to me, that's very special.
Because he realized that by being able to prepare a meal for a Muslim and a Jew was something that he never thought he would be doing in his lifetime.
We are here for all life that surrounds us, and we are all a part of it, and we need to protect and preserve what we have for the future generation.
We should think about the environment issue. We should deeply think about the consuming system. If we continue like this, keep the consuming system, not so far future, we will face to the everything stop. At that time, people afraid, truly afraid. We, religious leader, the spiritual leader, we know the idea from ancient times, for example, in the Bible, or myth, or sacred word from man's ancestor. We know the words. So we should keep the words and then transfer the words into the future.
We're building, coal plants and power plants and SUVs, and who can build a bigger one, and then we come up with what would Jesus drive? I mean, come on. I mean, is that the best we can do?
Look at the beauty we sit in. Why would anybody want to deface this in any way? So we certainly recognize, we honor the earth and all that entails as well.
My question to add is it's the appreciation. It's helping, I think, to create the appreciation for the environment, which we can each do in our own way within our congregations or our groups, because unless we really have a true appreciation, we may not take part in these recycling programs. So to me, that's a part of the process.
I would just like to
let the world know that we need to protect our mother, the earth, because there's being so many holes punched into her now that she's kind of losing her breath. Our mother keeps trying to replenish herself, but the more they take out, the weaker she gets.
I live in a neighborhood, people's only concern is their stock portfolio and their, how they're going to retire and play golf for the rest of their lives. And, and our brother sort of alluded to where I live. I mean, it's sort of affectionately become known as moonscape. There's no landscaping, it's moonscaping. They come in, they scrape the earth, and build houses and then plant little bushes and just ruin what natural vegetation or trees might be there. But I think this is part of the answer. I'm preaching now. I'm Presbyterian. I can't help it.
It's not about throwing a piece of paper out or the recycling program down at the school. It's about the multinational corporations that are running rampant over this world, that respects no borders, that GATT, NAFTA, and other things have come up, and they continue to abuse the world. It's not about if you cut down your evergreen tree in your front yard, then you can plant another one if you like. It's about major logging companies in the rainforest in South America tearing down millions and millions and millions of trees so that they can clear land out for cattle so that you can have burgers for McDonald's. That's what it's about. And unless this group addresses the multinational corporations, and some folks may be afraid of that, we're not really addressing the problem of the environment.
Alaska has been challenged since the 1700s. We've been assaulted, and right now it's got to the point where the last thing they have up there is Alaska Wildlife Area, and that covers 300,000 caribou are in there. Millions of birds are in there. Whales are in that area. It's the last frontier, and we're barely hanging on. We have oil companies coming in. We have people with a lot of money coming in there. And what the government did is they stepped in, and there's villages surrounding this area. So what they did is they came in on one side, and some way or another they got the native people divided. So now the native people are against each other. So what money we had left, we took, and we got them reunited again.
And the earth is not going to wait for us to say we're sorry. It's not going to wait for us to determine whether it's masculine or feminine. It's not going to wait for any of that. And I think that it's imperative that we really understand, from whatever vantage point we have, that this little blue marble on its Mother Earth is angry. We have to really start to think about surviving as a species.
We come into this place, oh, this is mine. But actually the philosophy is near, Mama, nothing is mine, it's all the Lord's. So everything should be utilized, like the environment, for the Lord's glory, not our own. And so instead of taking, we give back. So everything is seen in that way. It becomes perfect. The whole life becomes prayerful and giving back, not exploiting, not taking. This is I, me, and mine, but, oh, let me give back. Give back to the Lord.
We don't have that much media in Alaska, and the media we do have is always one-sided. We're having land taken away from us by the government. We have land that's being drilled for oil on our land, and we have, right now we have the Japanese coming in and putting up a nuclear power plant. We have 72 nuclear dump sites in the state of Alaska, and our village has several of them right now. On one street in our village, which is only 4 blocks long, we've had 30 deaths with cancer. And so the people just don't know what to do, and they don't know where to turn right now.
There were a number of people that during this conference risked their lives to participate. And it's very hard to imagine what their life is. And so in seeing this documentary, understanding that the minute that you see their faces on this screen, their life is at risk, because there are many people that in the name of Christianity would like to cause harm to them or to their people. And this is an issue that is still continuing today, not only an issue of the past. And because of that, a lot of expressions of anger and pain were talked about during the conference on Christianity in specific, and how it has affected people around the world. And likewise, it was really incredible to see the spiritual leaders from the Christian traditions own up to that past and try and find ways of healing it in the future.
World peace will come more and more as we take responsibility for ourselves as individuals, and we see our capacity, because of our basic goodness, to look inside and discover the source of our own suffering, whatever aggression, whatever confusion is arising, and then creating painful actions toward others. The more we take responsibility in that way, we can feel compassion for others who also suffer. And that way we can create more and more peace amongst ourselves.
There has to be some repairs made. There's still hurt, there's still animosity, the things are still going on, and Christianity has not addressed that. I'm not talking about anybody here personally, but I'm saying some form of how the Western Christian churches formulate an official apology from the highest levels, from the Archbishop of Canterbury, where every church signs it, from the Pope, from whoever is your particular person or group of persuasion, to come officially with an apology. And it be put in the United Nations, it be put in every country, that we are sorry for the things that we have done, because many of the things that were done and many of the things that were stolen are still stolen. The Vatican has 25 miles of books in the Vatican, artifacts, things that were stolen, ancestral powerful instruments, technology from ancient days. All these things are being held by museums in the Louvre and the British Museum and all these type of things. These things have to be dealt with. It's not just, hey, let's throw the baggage away and let's start from now. I hit you every day with a bat, and then I say, okay, I don't feel like hitting you with the bat today, and let's be friends. No, that's not realistic. And it's not realistic thought. Move towards repairing the damage that has been done. And then, that doesn't mean that we're going to forget, because we're going to watch you. You know, we're not going to forget it. Okay, we can work together and sit across the table and things like that, but we're not going to forget. But we can learn to work together in the world, but there have to be repairs made.
I don't call upon Jesus Christ as the Lord. When I pray to the Holy One. Through the times, they claimed themselves to be Christians. They came in, and they took those things, and they threw them away. Threw them in the water, threw them into fire. And then they took some of it to the museums all over the world. These things, they disappeared. The things that we had. All I'm left with is the medicine. And the white man put the label on it. He said, call it the Native American Church. So that is all I'm left with. So I'm doing my best to build on it.
I don't usually take these when I go someplace, but I thought it was very odd, but now I understand why. These are symbols of mourning. The message that I'm supposed to tell you is that if you do not come back to your original texts and embrace them as one, your faith will not continue as you know it. Is there someone here to accept these? the books that the Christian people use are incomplete. Hence, your data is incomplete. Those that were before you, for good intentions, took these books away. You need these books to make you one again. I don't know how to say that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't see the hurt in this woman's voice about what's going on with her people, and this is a continuous thing that's going on, and it's a continuous thing that is ignored. We're trying to proceed like everything's okay.
Is there anyone at this table that has nothing to apologize for?
Well, we brought that word up before, and it was kind of shut down.
No, but what he's saying is basically, can anyone in this table, as the story goes, cast the first stone? And if you can't, then in reality, the biggest issue, and this is something...
I think I was talking.
Well, I'm explaining, so
yeah,
go ahead.
So I'm going to ask you to wait 1 second. I brought up the word with the energy of the group. I said the word apologize.
These were given to me by a Native American from Alaska. She presented them to me out of mourning, out of a sense of pain, out of a sense of brokenness. And she was shaking when she was even thinking about it, and when the words were coming out, and in her progress toward me, and then gave them to me as a symbol of mourning over what has been broken, what has been separated. And this was a sign, it was a symbol, a powerful symbol of coming together again and embracing one another's traditions, faiths, cultures, humanity.
We are people out of spiritual traditions, and we really want to do good. But each one of our spiritual traditions also f***s up in a very major way.
Tell the truth, brother.
Period.
What the
and has done.
Because
and
we're human.
just
We're all
asking
human.
everybody to apologize, that line's going to go from here to the moon, and it's a waste of time.
My community right now, and I, and other people who are in this room have received threats. There are policemen here. It's not just that each of us owes the rest of us an apology, and it should come from the hierarchy, but you want to know something? Don't hold your breath. What we need to do is, because that's the power in the institutions, and maybe it'll come, but the odds are it's not. And in the meantime, there are people out there who would love to do harm to everyone in here, because we're trying to move beyond that. They are locked in that anger that brings harm. And I would say to you to honor what you're saying, because I'm experiencing it right now. And we're all, you may not be aware, but we're all experiencing it. Interfaith work is considered the devil's work by people who are very comfortable picking up guns and using them. And everyone at this table is at great personal risk. And when you go home, you may have to deal with that. I deal with it. So this is what I suggest. Calming.
Breathe.
I picked up no, I'm not done.
Breathe.
I'm not done. You got
Breathe.
twice. I'm going to finish. This, because I'm trying to synthesize. To honor the fact that there are still, I think we need to address, I'm thinking of the people out there who are going to look at what we do and try to attack us for it, and the people who are going to depend upon this to stand up to them, because we're dealing with forces of fascism right now that are very dangerous.
Absolutely.
And I think that everything we do here is vital to the safety and the future and the ability of each of us to continue to practice our faith traditions. regardless of past oppression, to go forward without that oppression. There are people who would like to oppress every single one of us, and they're a greater concern to me than the history. It's the future I'm worrying about right now.
I'd like to make a comment on that, actually, and I know everyone is dying to speak right now, but the Dalai Lama actually said something incredible. He said that it is not enough that we elect our leaders, be they in the pulpit, be they in an elected political office, and then expect them to make all our decisions for us and sit back and assume that it's going to happen, and then be angry when they don't make the decisions we want.
Even as a Presbyterian, I'm feeling a heck of a lot of energy here.
Amen, brother. What happened to you?
I'm human, man.
Had a conversion experience.
I've had a lot of conversion experiences, but wait a minute, Mike. Okay, hang. And how I got stuck in the middle here between this energy is a divine.
You and me both.
God's
But-
sense of humor.
Yeah, but you see, but I feel the difference in what this woman just gave to me and what you are expressing. I feel your mourning, I feel your love, I feel your pain. And I want to know how to receive it and what to do. I feel your anger and your pain. And I find that harder to receive, and I don't know what to do with that either. So what do we do?
But it's also very chaotic, but that's part of the balance. It's part of the balance, is out of that chaos to be able to bring out the things that you know are right. Not right. The ones that where you can affect change.
And your comment about books, and it's a wonderful commentary, I think. Because I know in my Christian tradition throughout all the centuries, we tend to we have a term for it called eisegesis instead of exegesis. We sort of isolate certain texts, if you will, and build whole institutions on it, as you've expressed, mega institutional expressions of our forms of eisegesis. And I just want to read one little paragraph from the Gospel of John that I think relates to what you've said. It says, "There are also many other things which Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written." We can't limit ourselves, our Christianity, just to these texts that we may have been, that we may have received through some political or ecclesiastical process. There are probably hundreds, millions of expressions of the love of Christ, the love of Jesus that we don't know about. We can't. And maybe those are some of the texts that you're referring to.
I don't know what it is. I'm simply the messenger. You know, that's your responsibility, is to go home and figure out what that is. That's not my responsibility to explain it to you.
We've been doing that for centuries, embracing many, many texts. And what you're speaking to, and I hear your pain, I believe that somewhere you have been clobbered by that book. That is not us. I don't think that's any of us in this room.
What I did wasn't in the spirit of blaming. What I did was not of me.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the spirit of healing.
It's in the spirit of healing.
Roger Williams was asked to leave the Congregational Church because he believed in the inherency of the Scripture. and he was a literalist. And the Congregational Church said, that's not where we stand. We don't worship this book. And we recognize many, many books. And so he had to leave that church. He happened to be the founder of the Baptist Church, and there is that tradition that goes that way in terms of the book. But again, my tradition has fought exactly for the thing you're fighting for centuries. Exactly the thing you're fighting for centuries. And I, as a brother with you, link arms, will continue to fight from my tradition, from my church, with you, hand in hand.
I get it. I get why we're here. It's proven itself. It just proved itself just now. We can do this. And if we can do this, other people can do this. And that's why you brought us here. You brought us here to learn, to overcome the pain and the anger and the fear and the impulse towards, because take the anger and magnify it and you get this. And to overcome that. And if we can do it, then we can bring that to the rest of the world, because that's our job.
And it seems to me the problem lies in that a lot of people don't love themselves. So therefore they don't love their neighbor. It seems to me that a lot of people come from unhealed and hurt places, and that's where the anger and the war and all of that come from. I think that after we do our spiritual work and we come to love what is inside of us, then we can love our neighbor as ourselves, and it can be a healthier, happier love. It can be a stronger love. And I believe that most or all of the world religions at their base or core would say that.
I think I came into this gathering with some preconceived notions, or almost preformed expectations, you might say, from those who represent a Christian background. And I've been inspired to experience their openness to even be here, number one, but to also do the due diligence of ownership of some of that history, which has, in some cases, been a harmful one to indigenous people.
To apologize is also to create the vision. And I like, Todd, what you're saying. It isn't just Christians. It's the illness in humanity. It's the illness in humanity.
Toward the last day, when there were tears that were spilt, there was shouts that had been heard, there was anguish that had been expressed. It had been a perfectly sunny day, and out of nowhere, this thunderstorm just rolled in. And it was, to so many of these spiritual leaders, as if it were God sent. They started crying, they started saying, thank the Lord. So you started hearing all these different expressions specifically for their religion, but they were all expressing the idea of the rain as a feeling of giving birth, as a feeling of receiving a blessing, that the work they had done was that important and that hopeful and had planted that many seeds.
This is what I had shared with my sister here. The man represents who we are here today. What we're doing is holding a planting stick with seed. What we're asking for today, so that our children can grow with strength. And the sun, the colors of sun, representing the colors of all life. And thunder with great strength. So we get together and work together.
I'll say about the rain, people always hope that it'll rain on their wedding day and birthdays of their children, because it's considered very auspicious if the rain falls on otherwise day of celebration.
I think there's been a tremendous amount of magic here. The rain, the storm and the rain happening just at the moment that we began the process. The waters broke, the waters of heaven broke just as we began the process of birthing the collective wisdom that we had gathered together over these last few days. It was astonishing. And the elder to whom we have gone back over and over and over again, Ambrose, is a member of the Water Clan.
Ambrose told me a great story about rain last night. Could you share that story?
We pick our medicine down here in south, and we come down, we travel all the way 1,000 miles to get our medicine. We traveled one day down there and it was dry, and one of the people that living down there came to me and wanted to me for pray for rain. So all I did was put my feather in the water, like that, and motion it. And they said, "You're going to get rain." So after that, I picked my medicine, went home. A year later, I traveled back down again. That same man came up to me. He said, "Too much rain, too much water." He says, "Can you pray?" Last year, a crazy Indian came by and asked for rain. And now I want you to let the rain stop. So I said, okay. I dipped that same feather in the water. I motioned it. I didn't motion it, I just dipped it and I put it away. I took that rain home, took it out up there, motioned it, and I said, I want rain here. Those people down there don't want rain. I want rain here. So it rained at my house.
Long time.
So that's the story of that rain. And when it rains, and when you're asking for something in a native way, they always say that's a good blessing. That's a good blessing from the Holy One. So, and then it says, it only takes one to cry in the wilderness. And if somebody hears, they will gather. You cried out in the wilderness, and we heard.
In Arabic, the word Rahma is one of the principal names of God, and it is sometimes depicted as that rain, and I know it's in other traditions as well, that rains upon the just and the unjust, the deserving, the not deserving. You know, it just rains on everybody. We are all blessed by this Creator.
The souls that have been other planets and other places come back to the earth on the rain. Each soul comes in a drop. They go into the grains, and the grains become fertilized by that little soul. Otherwise, the seed wouldn't grow. The seed is, without that drop, it stays just a seed. So when the drop comes, then the plant comes. Then your daddy came and ate that plant, and you were in daddy. You were that little spirit soul. And for about a month, you were inside daddy, and then you got transferred to mom. I won't go into the details. I know you all know how that happens. But then when you got inside mom, you found an egg in there. And you created for yourself a material and a human body before you came out again. So here are all these souls coming back to the earth. And so all the discussion, especially from our Hopi brothers, about seeds, are now being fertilized.
Let me add on to that. A couple of nights ago, I and our brothers and sisters had a little group session. We said, if everything goes well in our session here, let our fathers hear us. Let it rain. And absolutely it did. I think we're all excited about that. So let's keep that in our hearts so that way we know that the rain didn't come accidentally. It was done because we're here, the gathering of all nations together as brothers and sisters. Thank you. Pokwai.
I believe our purpose here on earth is to heal. Is to heal all that there is. That we come in, incarnate in with something to heal and something to forgive. It's a challenge here. So just coming on this earth is a huge spiritual awakening. Every second of every day of every year. It's hard here on earth.
Almost every single religious group here, most of all my preconceived notions about what people had told me about what various religious groups believed were wrong. I mean, just completely wrong. And in that, I see that there are a lot of people specifically here, I believe, represented, that are honestly pursuing God.
But it is the human spirit, the ability to rise above all of that and know when they see a hand of a friend to take it and do the work. And I think that's what we have collected here, is those of us who want to be friends, who want to overcome the problems. and do it together and not exclude anybody. This is about getting as many friends in here as we can.
Yes.
I would ask, and I would suggest, that the path of healing is not somewhere out there. And the only thing that we can affect change in is in ourselves. And if we become holy men and women, then this is what will bring, again, holiness and light to this world.
And as I said way back in the beginning, this friend of mine, who's a professor of New Testament, said to me, I know you love me because you have received me. And we're receiving each other. We have to keep receiving, keep hearing, keep dispelling our beliefs about the other that we bring. And as Michael says, to be a student of each other, to hear each other. We're just beginning. Just beginning.
I feel privileged being a part of this, and I'm really grateful. And I know the seeds or whatever that I'm going to bring back to my community where I go in the world, and I'm going to tell them about this project. I'm going to tell them about that all groups, all faiths, all cultures, class are able to sit around and have dialogue, both indigenous and church and conservative and orthodox, that I was witness to it.
What we talked about earlier about our past, atrocities from the past, it's like that sphere right there in the center. Depending on where you're sitting, you look at it, you see reflections of yourself and others, other cultures, other traditions. There is no place in that sphere that's blocked off where we can't see the other. That's why, in order for us to make this productive for all of us, we need to include everything, all of our thoughts, our concerns. So when this was presented to Todd, it was very important to me. I took it to heart. You know, you have started, we have all started something that should have been done a long time ago.
If I don't respect what God has created in terms of nature, I don't respect the nature. If I don't respect you and everyone out there that God has created with your own uniqueness, I'm missing something. I'm not respecting the Creator. I need to learn to respect the Creator, and that respect comes from respecting each one of His creation. And that's the beautiful message out of the conference. I do hope this message multiplies and goes out. And I did. The media, the American media, was here to show the goodness that has happened here to the general American people. American people are hungry, thirsty for good things to see. We constantly see bombarded with negative things. It was such a positive experience.
I had a chance to tell what Hinduism stands for, and therefore share the views of Hinduism among other faiths and see the commonalities between other faiths and ours. And therefore this has given me even greater strength to go back to our people and tell them, look, we're all the same, but we do it in little different ways. So let us learn what others do.
If you take out the proper name, all these beautiful books are saying the same beautiful things, to care about yourselves, care about the mankind. And I hope all of us can read every text, taking out the proper name and read it as a generic. You'll find the sameness in all the text.
Our task is for healing to happen, not from an archbishop or pope making apologies, but for me to sit with a brother or a sister and to have you heal me, to have you put in my holes the part that's missing. And you'll have one or two of them for me, and you'll have two or three for me, and you'll have one or two more for me. But you are the missing pieces to my healing. And I don't know that if I don't be quiet and listen and open up and be the complete receiver, both from you and from the divine. I don't know that unless I truly open to the divine feminine and be not about me at all. I don't need anything but you. And the beloved one. So thank you for helping me heal, and I pray that I can help you heal so you can help heal others.
Amen.
And so I've been looking very carefully at what's been happening in terms of the sudden explosion of fundamentalism in this country and the political power that it has managed to amass in the last 30 years, unbeknownst to most of us. And it's been very frightening. It's a kind of fundamentalist fascism where everybody is expected to believe the same thing and live the same way and have the same values and think in the same way. And it's incredibly antithetical to what this country is about. And there's enormous power and enormous anger there. And it was very worrisome and very discouraging to me. And I came here and I sat in this circle day after day with members of all these different faith traditions. And I listened to them and I watched them and I sang with them and I danced with them and I engaged in small acts of grace with them, of prayer. And I'm leaving here feeling very strong, very peaceful, very certain that we're not going to go backwards, we're going to go forwards, that the future belongs to people who appreciate the incredible beauty and the diversity of religious traditions and all the gifts that we have to offer each other. That's the future. It's a future in which we honor and respect each other and learn from each other, and so become stronger and wiser and closer to the divine. And it was an astonishing gift. It was an amazing gift.
None of us here is qualified to cast the first stone because we are not without guilt. And that's human. That's a part of being human.
But it's the responsibility of each and every one of us to take what we have learned and received and heard and seen and go do it.
One is that there's reason to have hope. Two, there's more work to be done.
I believe that we are living in a time when we can make things happen.
Through an understanding of each other's cultures, we can bring world peace to mankind. And through that, we won't destroy our world, but we'll be able to exist on our world as brothers and sisters.
If there's positive energy in the heart and in the mind, then there would be peace.
Do and speak from your heart. Come out of the box. Forget the dogma of your doctrine and let your heart guide you.
Religious and God means freedom, harmonic, and love, and peace and dignity momentarily.
My message to the world is really easy. To love one another, be that of the child.
The only way we could live is like pray and just try our best.
Sharing leads to understanding, and understanding leads to peace, and peace leads to love, and love leads to grace. And that's what you get when we come together in a circle.
We are as one, that we need to work and share and protect all life in this world together.
And I believe that if those religious leaders would go back to their roots, they would find at the heart of their root is the message of love.
When we die and we get to heaven, God's not going to ask you whether you were a Presbyterian or a Baptist or a Hindu or a Jew or a Buddhist or a Catholic. He's going to ask you, what did you do for your brother?
Above all else, be nice to people. That's the secret and that's the key. If you're nice to people, they break their neck for you.
We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the mothers who breathe with the Mother Earth. We are the fathers, blessed with a gentle strength. The sisters and brothers, respected hand in hand. The sons and the daughters who walk upon this sacred land. And we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, yeah. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Oh, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the healers who hear the voice of truth. We are the elders whose wisdom guides our youth. The searchers and seekers with wings spread into the sun. The shapers and builders whose work for peace is never done. And we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, yeah. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Oh, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We're givers of mercy, believers in grace, singers of great beauty, and keepers of the faith. We are the sailors who come back through the storm. We are the dreamers resting in God's arms. The dancers and lovers who move beneath the stars. The masters and teachers whose visions remind us who we are. And we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, yeah. We are the mothers who breathe with the Mother Earth. We are the fathers, blessed
My
with
sense
a
of
gentle strength.
the time together is that it's probably one of the most unique gatherings that's ever taken place. I've seen gatherings before where the dominant religions have been brought together. And I've been to numerous gatherings where the shamanic wisdom keepers of different cultures were brought together. But I've never seen a gathering where the dominant religions and the indigenous earth-based traditions were brought together in dialogue. So on that level, I would say it's the most unique gathering I've ever heard of or been to myself.
Well, I think we're all after the same thing. Maybe we might be in different pews, different churches, but everybody's, religious people they're seeking God. That's really what they're seeking.
We can create world peace by being open and willing to receive each other and respect each other and to really see the love in each other and the spiritual being that we really are.
As a younger person, one of the things that we get frustrated with is being told that the way you change the future is you teach the next generation, when in reality it's the current generation in power that has to be able to create a strategy that the younger generations will inherit, so that they don't just inherit the problems. Instead, they inherit a means by which to attack the problems, a means by which to start solving the problems, a means by which to start creating new solutions.
I think that instead of just harboring the hatred that some people might have, just sit down and discuss it. And you will find out that a lot of traditions are alike in a lot of ways. And you can never know that if you don't ask or you don't go see for yourselves. And I think that's what we can do instead of just keeping that in your heart for an unnecessary reason.
And all traditions and all cultures throughout this world have some kind of belief. And that belief shows them discipline. It gives them a direction. And it makes them understand what their purpose is in this world. So if they stick with their beliefs and traditions and perpetuate that, then I believe that it will promote peace and prosperity for all life.
And so the trouble we have in this world, at least according to the Bhagavad Gita, is that we think we are male or female, black or white, rich or poor, this culture or that culture, when we're all just a speck of spirit. And once we identify with matter, with our material vehicle, then we have two things we think will make us happy. One is to gratify my senses. Therefore, we have consumerism. Therefore, we have all the problem with the environment where people are simply trying to gratify their senses and to hell with everybody else. And the other thing is that once we identify with this physical thing, we want to be better than other people. We want to lord it over somebody else. Therefore, the white race wants to dominate the black race or the red race or the this or that or the other because of that mistake in thinking we are something that is temporary, that is just here as this vehicle, instead of seeing our happiness in relationship to the Supreme Spirit. And instead of serving and loving God, we try to serve and love that which is temporary, which is born and dies.